So it's the middle of the interview season, and we are getting a lot of questions at this point on what should I do from now, middle of December till the end of the match season. Whether you have interviews or you're still waiting for the interviews. For those who have interviews, the most important questions revolve around the thank you letters, what we should write in them, what not to write in them, letter of intent, holiday cards, and so on. So we'll talk about some of the things you can mention in the post interview communication. For those who are waiting for the interviews, it's mostly what they can do at this point of time and how they can still continue the program outreach. And of course, then we'll tackle the important question, is the interview invite season over, or if you can expect more interviews in the coming months? Hey there. So welcome again to our channel where we discuss all the match related update and the analysis. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram as we release weekly updates and videos about the match. Okay, so let's start off by tackling the most obvious question. Middle of December, is the interview season over? And the answer is no. Based on our own analysis, the analysis of the Sarthi students' data, the interviews are still coming in. Although, of course, the pace typically slows down in December each year, and that's what has happened this year as well. So the interviews are still coming in. Second, are there IMGs and Caribbean applicants in this season who have 15 plus interviews? And if yes, why are they not canceling? And the answer is yes. Like every typical year, even this year, IMGs and Caribbean applicants have 15 plus interviews. In fact, some of our students have 30 plus interviews. And the cancellations typically start around Christmas or around that time. Of course, what we don't know is the extent of cancellations that will happen in this season. This is not a typical season, we all know it. But in previous seasons, you would see the weather related issues come in after December into January. Most of the East Coast and Midwest, it snows. And then there is the associated cost of travel. You know, if you average out the cost of traveling and staying for one interview, flight, stay, etc., easily can run into $800 to $1,000. So in a season where interviews are all virtual, there are no weather related issues, there are no travel cost involved. So the extent of cancellation is still unknown. How many of the applicants will cancel? Many of our students and others have started to receive pre-match interviews. So they are going to go out of the system. That'll open up some slots. And even with students more than 15 interviews, there may be unavoidable conflicts and they may have to leave one interview for the other. So this is bound to happen. Finally, a lot will depend on how the students with 15 plus interviews plan their season. It is unrealistic to expect anyone with less than 15 or 12 interviews to cancel. So we'll just have to see how the rest of the season pans out. Maybe the programs can open up more spots. We will see cancellation interviews, it's just the extent is still unknown. Okay, so now switching gears, let's talk about those of you who have interviews, whether it's one interview or 10 interviews, doesn't matter. Most of the questions we got was the thank you emails, holiday cards, even on-site visits. Many programs have actually extended on-site visits after the first virtual interview. Step 3 is another thing that comes up. Letter of intent would be another. So let's tackle each one of these one by one. First, the thank you letters or emails or things like that. Be aware of the program policy. If the program has clearly mentioned that do not send thank you emails, letters, communication, please don't do that. It reflects very poorly, and the programs may feel that you don't pay attention to the directions or such details. So it'll not be a good sign if you do that in spite of program telling you not to do that. Secondly, when you complete the interview, if you are going to send that thank you email, try to send it within a day or so. It's a courtesy. You should not delay it if you want to send it. So send it within a couple of days. Now let's talk about the content and possibly a template for these thank you emails or letters. Let me show you one. So here is a template for thank you letter that I had mentioned. This is from UCSF, University of California at San Francisco, I think, and I will have the link in the description below, so you can look at it later on as well and download it if you want. As they say, the thank you letter, about 6 steps, why you should write it, of course, who should you send this to. So every person who interviewed you, that's your answer to who all should get it. Now, then they also give you some kind of a format, 4 to 8 sentences long. And what they're saying is first couple of sentences can be same. Pretty much this is where you're talking about the program in general. But the second paragraph here is the key when you want to talk about that interview specific discussion you had with that particular attending or program director. Those interview nuggets, those discussions, that's what gets in here after you've spoken about the program. And then, of course, you kind of wrap it up saying how thankful you are and that you remain interested in the program regardless of the outcome. So you can go over this template. So the key that I wanted you to focus on here was the interview specific details that you need to put in the letter. Then they also give you some of the other guidance here that you can see. Should I send a note to everyone? Yes, of course. Should you email the letter, thank you letter, or you send it by regular post? So if you're closer to the rank order list deadline, etc., obviously email is the must and the quickest. Otherwise, they are saying you could either use physical mail or thank you emails. We recommend just sending a thank you email within 24 to 48 hours. So obviously the content of the email, there are only 3 rules, which is personalize, personalize, personalize. Take notes during their interviews and use those notes very, very judicially as you are writing these thank you letters, thank you emails to all the attendings and the program director who may have interviewed you. Now let's come to the next question. Should I be following up with a holiday card? Mid-December or around Christmas, New Year, etc. is also a good time to send these cards if you want. And handwritten cards tend to be more impactful, tend to be reflecting that you took time out of your schedule and reaching out to the program. So it's a good idea. The cards need not be very expensive, but it does show that you put some thought into it. Again, follow the program policy. If the program has clearly recommended don't do it, then don't do it. So related questions many of you have asked us, are these thank you letters and holiday cards useful? And the answer is it depends. Obviously, if the program has said don't do it and you keep doing it, that's not going to be a good sign for you. The second is that if you are on the extreme level of performance in the interview or based on your profile, let's say you did very well on the interview and you have a strong profile, you have a fit for the program is more than likely to rank you anyway. The letters are not going to, or thank you emails are not going to make much of a difference. And the converse is also true. So if you for some reason bombed the interview, didn't do well enough, and the program really didn't like you, so they are not going to rank you anyway, whether or not you send the letter or email. Obviously, the challenge is that it's hard for most of us to know how you performed in the interview too. So to be on the safe side, it's a good idea to send. So if the program likes you and they are considering to rank you, then they will be impressed, and these kind of letters and holiday cards can make a difference. Let's move on to now the letter of intent that you typically send closer to the rank order list deadline in end of January or early Feb, telling the program that you are going to be ranking them number one. Or too early to do that in December. Letter of intent can wait. And the other reason is you don't want to present a picture that you are so desperate that even in December, when the interviews are still going on. Many students are interviewing in January. You have already made up your mind. So that's the reason we say avoid sending this letter of intent in December. And one mistake which you should avoid, whether it's the thank you letter or this letter of intent, is telling the program that you will rank very high or highly or things like that. That could also convey sentiment that you don't want to rank them number one. So avoid these kind of vague languages. But again, it is early, and later on in the season, we'll probably have another guidance video and discussion on the letter of intent. So now let's talk about what was typically known as the second visit in the previous seasons, and now most likelihood is the first on-campus, on-site visit. So there are programs who have extended invitation after the virtual interview to many of our students saying, if you'd like to visit the program, feel free, so on and so forth. So this is quote unquote the second visit. And the question is, what should you do? So if the program has already extended an invite to you, that means they are really, really interested. Because in this COVID era, most programs are trying to say only virtual, and these invites are rare, which would mean that they think you're a fit for the program. So seriously consider it. Obviously, take care of your health, the safety aspects. Many of you may not be able to travel, but if everything can be arranged, travel, logistics, your safety, then it's a good idea to take the program up on this offer and visit them for the on-site arrangement that they may have made. Now, of course, many of you have asked, should I volunteer and ask for a visit? And that's not a bad idea. You should always do that. You can do that. There's nothing wrong in it. The program can say no because, again, COVID or otherwise, they can say no. But, have a genuine reason in mind as you talk about these things. Maybe you couldn't meet the program director in a virtual meeting, or maybe morning rounds, or maybe there are other aspects of the program that you want to discuss. So you want to offer yourself for a second visit. Not a bad idea. And leave it to the program to decide that. Okay, now if you have few interviews or you have no interviews, one thing that you must keep doing is preparing for the interviews. Take a step back, do the self-analysis. How are you performing in these interviews? Are you confident enough, or do you think you're still a bit shaky? Because that is important. You need to take a pause and analyze this so that you can improve on your interview performance, especially if you have 5 or fewer interviews. You don't want to risk anything. You really need to nail these interviews to have a strong chance of match. So in addition to other things that you may be doing, make sure to analyze your performance in the interview. Self-analysis is always a good idea, and that will help you in the long run. Okay, now moving on to those of you who have no interviews, what can you do? So number one and foremost, of course, is continue the program outreach. There are a couple of other videos that we have done in past that you can see, and also a few blogs on our website that'll give you more detailed guidance on how to do program outreach. But remember, the season is not over. Like previous seasons, we expect many programs to interview closer to the rank order list deadline, which is early March. So things can change. You can get a last minute interview. So be ready. Like I said, keep preparing for the interviews, common questions. Again, some videos are there that you should always be ready in this virtual season. You can get interviews at any time. Keep up the program outreach. Then it's always a good idea to keep working, whether it's a telerotation, whether you're in a clinic doing observerships, or in your home country working, especially in a big, busy hospital, COVID related work. If you have no interviews, always keep adding to your profile. This will come in very handy. Don't sit at home. Keep doing things that will ensure that you are clinically active. Those are very important things for you to do. Third, keep looking for research opportunities, especially if you have low scores or other red flags. Research is very powerful. And even late in the season, if you can get a research opportunity, you can update the programs and it will help you in possibly this season, if not the next season. And due to COVID, if you cannot land a research position with a university or a residency program, don't be disappointed. You can start some self-directed research. In fact, we offer courses that lead to publication. So there are options that you can explore. Research is going to be very helpful for those of you who don't have any interviews. So you can consider research as well. And then there is step three. Now, whether you have interviews or you don't have interviews, step three really helps you, especially those with red flags or low scores. Now, if you take step three well in advance, so end of December, early January, there is a possibility that your interview count will go up. The programs like it. And even if the interview count doesn't go up, if you have interviews, it'll help you in the rank order list, because the program then doesn't have to worry about you taking time off for step three in your intern year. So step three is also something to be seriously considered now for those of you who have no interviews, definitely, plus those of you who have interviews and more than enough interviews, why not take step three and get it out? So that was all. Hopefully, this was helpful. Tell us what you are doing. Are you planning to do research, rotations, anything in the interview season? So let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe to our channel here, follow us on Instagram, and best of luck for the match season.